Hi, hello, hope you're doing well. I am just doing a voiceover for today's video. I have edited an insane amount of videos this past week. Well, really just like two, but for me, that's a lot of work. If you create videos, you know that like 80% of the work is literally just editing the dang thing. But I did finish this month's tutorial video over on Patreon, so I will be posting that soon. It's going to be all about gesture drawing and just tips and tricks to get more dynamic poses. So if you feel like your characters are really stiff or mannequin like whenever you draw them, I think this is a really good video for just helping you draw characters that feel a little bit more natural. So I'll leave a link to my Patreon down below if you'd like to check it out. I'll probably post that video sometime next week. The other video that I was editing is for my Skillshare class. I mentioned this in my last studio vlog, but I am working on doing a Skillshare class. I want to create a class that just goes over everything that you would possibly need to know to create a digital painting in Procreate. I have a lot of videos here on YouTube that they go over topics that are helpful for using Procreate, but the information is kind of scattered throughout several videos, so they're not really in any sort of order, and some of them are really old at this point. So I think doing a class on Skillshare would just be a good way to put everything in one place and walk you through step by step of my process and how to use Procreate. But yeah, that is in the works. I wanted to get the class filmed and edited this month, but I think I have grossly underestimated how long that would actually take. So we'll see. I have filmed a couple of parts so far, but this might end up taking longer than anticipated, so we will see how it goes. This is kind of random, but kind of related. I saw yesterday that YouTube is apparently going to add a class feature. Pretty cool, actually. Like, the problem that I just said about, having all of my information in several different videos, it would be cool to create a class here on YouTube too. I'm not planning on doing that right now. I kind of just want to see what it's all about first. But yeah, in the future, that might be fun to do a class here on YouTube too. Anywho, a little bit about this illustration. I've really been wanting to add more storytelling to my illustrations, and that's what I tried doing in this painting. I'm not really a rom-com girly, but I am a sucker for those moments in those movies where, like, against all odds, the couple, like, finally gets together. And that's kind of the inspiration for this illustration. I just imagine this is the scene at the end of the movie where, those two crazy kids finally get together. And I thought it would be really fun to add some cats in there too, since I did a sort of cozy witch theme. So kind of like in Cinderella with the mice, but this time they're cats, because she's a witch, so of course they are. But yeah. Anyway, I just think it's a lot of fun adding these story elements to an illustration. I want to get better about doing this in my art because these are my favorite kinds of illustrations, but I'm usually not in love with how they turn out. I think it's a skill issue for me because I think my lighting and my shadows in these sort of illustrations and paintings gets a little bit wonky, and I don't know, it doesn't quite. I'm usually not happy with the end result, and what is not filmed in this video is the absolute turmoil this illustration caused me, because I just kept getting so frustrated and stressed out about it. And I think the problem was my initial sketch. I think it was just too rigid. I tried a different brush than I typically use just to see if I liked it, and I do not. It made everything feel very rigid and stiff, and that's not really the vibe that I was going for, so I ended up switching. So I ended up actually drawing back over that sketch later after spending like probably a week on it. I finally gave up on it and I reworked the sketch, and I did the new sketch, the one that you see in this video. I did it in my brush that I typically work with, and it just went so much better. It was so much smoother. I reworked. I felt like the background of the initial sketch was also really boring. So whenever I drew back over the sketch, I actually reworked the background and tried to make it a little bit more like whimsical. I used an arched doorway instead of just straight lines. And I think that actually made a big difference. I really like the way that that turned out. If you take anything from this video, just know a bad sketch, like nothing will cover up a bad sketch. Like if you don't like your line art or your sketch initially, even when you add color and all this rendering on top, you're probably still not going to like that sketch. So it's better to just bite the bullet and rework the sketch instead of spending hours trying to make it work when it's not going to. And that's what this illustration was for me. This was just yet another example of I knew that I didn't like the sketch and I tried to make it work anyway and it just didn't work. Lesson learned there. I felt like the background was a little too boring. And then I also struggled with, I didn't really draw anything in the shop behind the characters. I was like, oh, whenever I get to rendering, I'll just, throw some stuff in there. I think that was a mistake. I think I should have planned that better from the beginning. So that's kind of what I tried to do in my new sketch. And I think that worked a lot better. So if you ever are doing an illustration like this, where there's a lot of items and things, if you think, oh, I'll just wing it later, like it might help you to actually draw or like have some sort of idea of what is actually going to go back there. And I think that'll really help you down the line whenever you are coloring and rendering. You'll thank your past self for doing the Lord's work now. I know I said I am happy with the final result. It's just not, I just feel like it's always missing something. I think I really struggle with texture in these sort of illustrations. I think that's what, like Maxine V, I just recently joined her Patreon again, and I've been going through some of her step-by-step, process things, and I'm really excited to kind of see what her process is like more, because I love the way that she does illustrations, and I feel like hers always has a story element to it, so I want to try and find ways to add story to mine, to my illustrations. And yeah, I'm really excited to kind of see how that goes. Yeah, so for this one, I had a really fun time, especially with the menu sign. I tried picking, I wanted it to be very like cozy witch themed. So of course our character has to work at a bakery. So I went through a couple different iterations of the shop name and the menu items. I'm really happy with the menu items actually. It was a lot of fun to just sort of play around with that and figure out like what sort of things would be on a witchy bakery menu. I think adding these little story elements just give your illustration a lot more depth to it. Yeah, if you can ever find ways to just make your painting a little bit more interesting like this, I think it's a lot of fun. Something I really want to work towards is creating more illustrations like these. I think if I just start doing more studies of real life objects and things, I hate doing still lifes. I always find those super boring. But to be honest, those would probably help me a lot in doing these kind of paintings in the future, to be honest. Because then I can kind of see like how things actually look in the real world. And then you can take that and sort of put it into your own little art world. And that is kind of the magic of these kind of illustrations, I think. I will probably do more like studies and things of different textures and just see if I can find ways to get the feeling that I want from my paintings like this. I've really wanted to work on creating more complex backgrounds, and this I think was probably one of the most complex backgrounds I've done in a while, maybe ever actually. Like this one was definitely much more complex, but I actually overall think it turned out fine. I think adding a little bit of whimsy and cuteness really made a difference, so I'm actually pretty happy with it. I think it turned out a lot better than my initial painting did. Okay guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed seeing me work through this illustration. I hope it helps in some way. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to help answer some of them for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!